Advocate discussion series. I'm Pamela Kelly or Pamela McAfee. I go by both of them, and I was happy to accept the invitation to be today's session facilitator because Chris and I have had a conversation in the past about how much I love doing this type of work with being on Zoom, being in these virtual spaces, and I feel pretty comfortable here. I come from a background where I used to be a radio disc jockey, and nowadays I facilitate phone banks using Zoom. And my passion is to try to make organizing as accessible as ever, or as accessible for as many people who want to get involved. So that's why I was really excited to do today's uh, today's show or today's today's event. So that's enough about me. I'm an open book. If you want to reach out to me, I'll go ahead and make sure that you get some information on how to reach out to me. And Rev Up NC, which is Register, Educate, Vote, Use Your Power, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that I run with some friends. That's
Hey,
all about,
Pamela, can you
yes.
back up and do the what Rev Up and C stands for
Oh, I'm
again?
so
Just
sorry.
slow
I was a
down
little
just
bit
a little bit.
fast. I was a little fast. Rev Up NC, which is register, educate, vote, use your power. And it's all about our population. We're the largest, most intersectional voting bloc out there, but we're not showing up and voting in the numbers that we could be. So that's one of my passions. So that's part of why I'm really excited to be here, and I'm ready to get on with the session. Did you know it is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month? So happy Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. Thank you all for being here. This is a discussion series, is a place for North Carolina self-advocates to gather and engage with each other, to talk about things that affect our lives as people experiencing life with IDD and other disabilities. We want this time together to get to know each other and to get to know the council, where I and other individuals with IDD are leaders. I could like move and see my little ALP thing. You can sign up to be a leader too. I went through the courses. Anyhow, you can be leaders, colleagues, and valued for our input because of who we are. People with disabilities should always be valued like that. And this discussion series demonstrates why and how. So going into this, want to set up some guidelines to maintain community and eliminate distraction. We are going to ask you to use the direct chat feature for side conversations, please. Just go to the participants list and select the person you want to chat with. Please don't put lengthy resources information in the chat to everyone. We'll send you information post session with an email with all the resources. So if you have resources you want to share, email it to, it's longer than an email address, right? Or a website address. Send that via chat to me or to Melissa. Now, before we get going, I always like when Chris does this, right? We got to do the joke of the day. Before we get to the program, let's get everybody into a lighter mood. The joke of the day. Go ahead and answer in the chat. What state is known for tiny drinks?
This is Philip.
Hi,
I'm a
Philip.
Vikings fan, and so I have to say Minnesota.
You got it. You got it. Minnesota, of course. Okay. Philip got it so fast. Okay, so we got another one then. What does a nosy pepper do? Nobody? This one's kind of trickier. A nosy pepper. It gets jalapeno business. Like all up in your business. Okay. Dad jokes aside. but thank you. Thank you, Philip. You got that Minnesota one right off the bat. So as we move on, thank you very much for the jokes. If you want to share any with me later when I put my email address, or let you have the email address, I love jokes like that. But today we're focusing on the collective power of organized advocacy. Okay, and I'm going to take a few minutes to share the idea with you called the value principle. Chris Hendricks, he's the regular facilitator of this series. He formed this concept back in 2021 with support to advance the NCCDD. So the value principle is reframing exercise, focusing on strengths, gifts, and assets one has because of one's disability. People with IDD have strengths and value that people that do not have IDD just don't have. In essence, an aspect of disability in a life area manifests as a power in one or more areas of being. For example, we got them right here. Great advantages of having a condition or a developmental disability. Empathy is a big one. As a whole, human beings are drawn towards empathy. Therefore, the more courageous one is about his or her condition, the more relationships and understanding he or she develops. We have a unique presence. Society has always been drawn to things that are unique and interesting. Regardless of understanding, one who has a condition will always stand out positively or negatively in a crowd. This is a tremendous advantage. Surprise! It has been shown that society doesn't expect much of those with conditions. Therefore, when we do succeed, we do so 10 times over. In other words, we tend to come out of nowhere. Persons with conditions who succeed are often highlighted more so than persons without conditions. Therefore, we can use our platform with more success to create change than other subcultures. Adaptability, that should be my middle name. Persons with IDD, let it be physical or mental, are born forced to adapt to their surroundings. While other cultures must do this as well, they do so at a lesser degree. As we are innately adaptive from birth, we tend to be more adaptable to different environments, even if those environments require accommodation from outside sources. And this is what I love: loyalty, community. Persons with IDD are, in fact, the most marginalized community. From a social standpoint, when someone provides us an opportunity, we are therefore much more likely to stay connected to that person. As a result, we elevate that person and their environment through dedicated work ethic and desire to exceed expectations. I love that. That is such a great value principle. So, call for change. As a community, people with conditions or disabilities have many challenges. Advocates and self-advocates have recognized this for many years and tend to focus on these challenges to create a better life. However, if we do not see ourselves as the solution, change will continue to be slow moving. As we continue to focus on the things that elevate us, we'll grow our community, create more natural sense of independence, and develop community-driven, long-lasting change exponentially faster, simply because we believe in ourselves. So awesome. So now we want to take time to acknowledge and experience all that is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. In 1987, President Ronald Reagan issued the initial public proclamation that the month of March should be recognized as Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month to increase public awareness of the needs and potential of Americans with developmental disabilities. And we've got this proclamation signed by Governor Stein, In the present, here and now, Governor Stein has signed a proclamation stating that March 2025 in the state of North Carolina is recognized as Developmental Disability Awareness Month by the governor of the state of North Carolina, a proclamation. Whereas Public Law 99-483, enacted by the United States Congress in 1987, designated the month of March as National Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, and whereas almost 200,000 people with intellectual and other developmental disabilities live across all 100 counties in North Carolina, and whereas it is the responsibility of all North Carolinians to recognize and acknowledge that it is not disability, but unjust societal barriers and attitudes that can keep individuals from realizing their full potential at school, work, home, and or in their communities. And whereas all North Carolinians can contribute to improving the lives of people with developmental disabilities by becoming advocates and supporters for their increased independence, capacity, and leadership. And whereas expecting and enabling people with developmental disabilities to function independently and productively within our societal and economic structures can strengthen our state in all areas, including public and private sectors. And whereas to fulfill the promises of the American with Disabilities Act and the Executive Order number 92, Employment First for North Carolinians with Disabilities, we reaffirm our commitment to the full community participation for individuals with developmental disabilities by expanding opportunities and equal access to fully integrated competitive employment, education, housing, healthcare, and civic engagement. And whereas the state of North Carolina commends the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities, and other state agencies, businesses, organizations, and individuals working to improve the lives of people with developmental disabilities and their families through advocacy, capacity building, and systems change. Now, therefore, I, Josh Stein, Governor of the state of North Carolina, do hereby proclaim March 2025 as Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month in North Carolina and commend its observance to all citizens. We thank you, Governor Stein. And you can access that proclamation, share it with your friends at the NCCDD website. The link will also be sent out after the session with other resources. Thank you so much for your time with that. Now we get on to our special guest. It's time to welcome back and introduce our wonderful guest speaker from Delaware, Emmanuel Jenkins. He's the dynamic driving force behind the transformative nonprofit We Stand for Something, is a beacon of support for individuals with disabilities and their families, and spreading positivity and hope in Delaware. He stands out as the Community Relations Officer for the Delaware Developmental Disabilities Council and serves influentially as the Vice Chair of the Delaware Developmental Disabilities Services Advisory Committee. He's an alumnus of the Partners in Policymaking program since 2014. Emmanuel's unwavering dedication to advocacy is evident with his ongoing roles in the advisory committee for Self-Advocacy Resource and Technical Assistance Center, and as the chair of the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities. That's the NACDD, where he also serves as the he also serves, sorry, I kind of stopped myself here. He also serves as a board member of the Leaders with Lived Experiences Committee. He serves on the, oh, this one I love. He serves on the NACCD board, and in 2024, Emmanuel was appointed by President Joe Biden to serve on the President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities, the PCPID, further amplifying his national impact. As the founder of E. Jenkins Solutions, LLC, Emmanuel leverages his expertise to provide a wide range of services, including leadership training and development and business development and quality assurance, plain language document creation, and policy and procedure development. Through his LLC, he works with organizations to ensure accessibility, clarity, and excellence in their operations. In academia, Emmanuel is a distinguished Lend Facility member of the University of Delaware, a devoted family man, married since 2009, father to a 19-year-old. Oh my goodness, that needs to be up at the very top, Emmanuel. A teenager. He exemplifies the transformative power of motivation. With over 2 decades as a motivational speaker, Emmanuel envisions a future in Congress where his tireless advocacy can reach new heights, embodying resilience, determination, and the belief in standing for something greater. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Emmanuel Jenkins. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have a conversation with you, mostly because why is advocacy needed now?
Thank you so much. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me. And I've never been introduced so well by a radio disc jockey. So now I can mark that off of my bucket list. But what a great question. Why is advocacy so important now? The first thing that I would share is that absolutely advocacy is needed more than ever. If we look at what's happening locally and nationally, there's a lot going on. But to put it simply, we must and we shall protect the work that was done before us. There were people that climbed the hills, the steps of the Capitol Hill. People like Judy Heumann and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Part of advocacy is also protecting what happened before us. So that is the biggest thing that I would share, that we must continue to protect while also fighting for new change. If we don't protect what happened before, there will be no future for us to advocate for across this country.
And I was thinking about what you're saying. I think that part of it is that needing to be visible, needing to make sure people know we're here, because they tend to put us in the background, I feel. Your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And being seen starts even in this kind of environment. If you are in a space where you can turn your camera on, which I strongly encourage you to do, that is more evidence to show that we are not just a name, that we are not just a disability, that we are not just someone sitting on a virtual meeting just to spend an hour because we like reading names on the screen, but really showing people your face, and part of your story is showing your face. And as we know from a history, it is easier to hide us than it is to spotlight us. Speaking value to your story is putting a face to the name. You know, we spent so much time on Zoom virtually because of the pandemic. And when we finally saw people in person, people was like, "Oh my God, you look so different." I look different because I don't have a square around my face that highlights every time I speak. But you're absolutely right. Being seen is not just about showing that you're there, but it's evidence to show that we are more than the diagnosis that someone has given us. And it goes beyond the four corners of the virtual square box that we tend to
You're gonna
hide
see my
behind.
cat's tail real quick. I'm sorry about that.
Even animals want to be seen.
Yeah,
Speaking
even my
whatever.
cat wants to be seen. Well, it's
Absolutely.
funny you mentioned that because like I'm always on the Zoom doing this stuff, and when people meet me in public and I'm in my wheelchair, they're like, "Whoa, I didn't," and I'm like, "Yeah, look at all the fun things we can do." Well,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
mentioned your story. Do you mind going into your specific story, your before and after advocacy story? Like, how did you find your voice?
Absolutely. My story is the foundation of why my bio is so long. But my story started with partners in policy making. That program changed my life. I don't know if you call it a 180 or a 360. But let me tell you, it was a ride. I had a gentleman by the name of Steve Tall. Steve Tall was the father of a young guy that I was going to school with years ago. And Steve, every time he saw me, he would say the same thing every single time. Emmanuel, you need to take partners in policy making. And I kept telling Steve, listen, Steve, I'm a young guy. All I'm worried about is video games, girls, and money. That was it. That was my existence. And no matter how many times I told Steve no, Steve was persistent. So long story short, years went by and I ignored Steve. Well, we graduated and I didn't see Steve as much as I saw Steve when I was in school. Later on, there was a lady by the name of Diana. I decided to volunteer at a camp for those with disabilities. And I get there, and Diana begins to learn me and know who I am. She says, Emmanuel, I have a program I think you should take. And I'm like, oh Lord, here we go again. Diana says, and I quote, I have a program called Partners in Policy Making that I want you to take. And I said, are you working with Steve? Like, did Steve put you up to this? And she said, Emmanuel, I don't even know who Steve is. But anyway, uh, she was also persistent. She said to me, I'm gonna go get the application for you, and tomorrow we're gonna sit down and you're gonna dictate to me. And dictating is where you tell someone what to write and they write it. So I'm telling Diana, I'm not wasting my time or yours. I'm not doing this. She said, yes, you are. And I said, okay, whatever. So the next morning I come in, I'm ready to go. I tried to scoot by her and she caught me. As soon as I got off the bus, she caught me and she said, come here. And I said, oh Lord, here we go. I thought you were gonna call out today. I was like hoping you would call out and I wouldn't have to do this. So anyway, long story short, I sat down, I filled out the application. Diana took the application to the post office and mailed it off. And when she mailed it off, I said, Diana, they're not gonna call me. 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, they called. I got into the program. The program was 8 months long. You go once a month for a weekend and learn anything about advocacy from the history of disability to how a bill gets passed. And let me share this really briefly. When I say that program changed my life, I took that program at the right time. That program led to the job that I have now. I now work for the council who puts that program together in the state of Delaware. But that was the root of it all. I was a kid who went home and looked out of the window every day, wondering, hoping that it was something beyond what I was used to. And partner gave me those tools to do it. So that is the foundation and the reason why my bio is it's almost like a tattoo. Once you get one tattoo, you want more and more and more. And advocacy is the same way. Once I got one leadership role, I wanted another. Once I got a bill passed, I wanted another. And now I have my eyes set on a local seat in Congress in the very, very near future.
We need to talk. I can help you run your phone banks. But I understand what you mean. I never thought I would be an advocate myself. And it's interesting when somebody saw that in you and you took the class and everything. So how did that shape your approach to advocacy?
First and foremost, the first word I learned, and I realized it paid off really, really quickly. Once I learned what advocacy, there's this word, and we don't talk about it enough, but it's called persistent. Diana was persistent. Steve was persistent, and persistence paid off. They didn't know that I would be appointed by the previous president of the United States of America. I didn't know, but I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that it was because of their persistence that in September last year, virtually I got to raise my right hand and to repeat the same oath that the President of the United States repeats, which upholds the highest seat in this country. I'm from a little town where people don't really get recognized. They would, the term we would use is poverty and ghetto, and people really don't come out to serve on national levels. But the word of persistence really means keep pushing. And when you push, one or two things are gonna happen. You either gonna push where you want to be, or you're gonna push past the mark that you even set for yourself. And I believe that it was because of their persistence that really shaped and molded my advocacy skills. Because one thing Steve and Diana taught me was no will only last for so long. And because of that, I approach every advocacy situation with okay. I'm okay with hearing no, but I will only hear no for so long.
Right. I was thinking about all these names that you were saying about different people that were important for you to get started. How important are these relationships, building relationships? And
Well, that's a very funny question for me. I am known in the state of Delaware and across this country for fostering relationships. Whenever somebody wants to form a relationship, they call me and they say, "How do I form a relationship?" I now travel the country talking about leadership and how to form relationships because relationships are the foundation in which this country was founded on. You look at the Constitution, you look at everything happening nationally, it all starts with relationships, whether they are good, bad, or ugly. Relationships are the foundation of advocacy. And to that point, when I meet legislators, when I meet my local government, when I meet the senator, Delaware senator, and other senators, I have a conversation with them just like there's somebody at the grocery store. And some people don't understand it. They're like, "Oh my God, you you said that to the mayor?" Yes. Yes, I said that to the mayor because one thing I know for sure, that they breathe and they bleed and they live exactly how we do. Oftentimes, we as advocates, we get intimidated because we're like, oh my gosh, I gotta go to Capitol Hill. Now I'm scared because I'm going to Capitol Hill. But if we remember that these people are human, I don't want to talk to your position, your Democratic Party or your Republican Party, whatever your voting party is. I want to talk to your heart because if I talk to your heart, we gonna have more connections than we are differences, and so on. So absolutely, relationships are the key. This is why I can go to a meeting with the mayor and we joke about each other's tie or shirt that we got on. And before I know it, I done rode out of the meeting with a tie from the mayor because I was joking with the mayor and said, "Hey, you know you really want to give me that tie, right?" And 9 times out of 10, I walk away, I come out with a new tie because we have that such relationship. But they do take time to build, but they are very, very important to advocacy, no matter what level of advocacy you start at.
I think, I'm thinking back to like what's happening with me right now. I wouldn't be here filling in for Chris if I hadn't started that relationship with Chris. If I hadn't taken that moment to say, "Hey Chris, you do a great job. I really love how you do this." And
Yes,
I used to do radio myself, and if you ever need me, and I never thought it would happen, but here I am. So yeah, it's all about networking and connecting with other people. And especially doing that bridge from our community, the disability community. How do you take it beyond just our community?
absolutely. You know, there's a vision that I have. It kind of reminds me of, how Martin Luther King kind of dream. I got a dream. I got a dream that one day we wouldn't need a bridge. That there won't be a such thing as that community and the disability community. If
Right.
we uh if we start to we're so used to building bridges and I hear people say it all the time. We need to build a bridge to advocacy. No, no,
Well,
no, we
well,
don't. We really need to eliminate the bridge. And if we eliminate the bridge, then things will become more common. So I don't have to feel different because in order for me to communicate with you, I got to cross the bridge. It reminds me of Dora the Explorer. I'm going back a couple years. But Dora the Explorer, one thing happened on Dora the Explorer, they would come to a point in the episode where they would go across the bridge and they would be like, riddle me this. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm tired of riddling. I want to get to a point where we don't have to riddle in order to cross the bridge to communicate with people. But to your question, uh, we have to we have to get back from wanting to put ourselves in a box because not only does the community do it, but we do it also. And I'm really encouraging people to no longer think outside the box, but really throw the box away. And if we throw the box away, then we don't have an excuse to go back to the box because the box doesn't exist. But that all starts with relationship building and really humanizing what we're all fighting for.
one of the things that I know that got me involved with advocacy is I found something that, like, voting is one of them. I'm on the transportation board for my county because I noticed that the bus stops aren't accessible. I mean, you can get on the bus; it's the buses are, but the bus stops are not. So, how can you, with using your story and finding that issue that matters to you, um, are there resources that you can use to get your advocacy journey going? Because I wanted to give us time to talk to everyone about
Absolutely.
their questions.
Absolutely. I really believe advocacy, excuse me, can start anywhere at any time. You may not be ready to go to Capitol Hill. You may not be ready to stand in front of a mic or sit in front of a microphone. You may not be ready to go to a meeting with your local senator or representative. However, you may be good at organizing. You may be good at helping someone write their testimony for legislative hall. You may be you may be good in using a computer to help people find out who their representative is. And I think sometimes when people read my bio, some people are encouraged, but then some people get intimidated. And I got to remind them that my bio is my blueprint. My job as a speaker, I've been a motivational speaker for over 20 years. My job as a motivational speaker is to encourage you to build your blueprint. However that may look, you again, you may be good at organizing lunch for a group of people. Start
We all
there.
have our, we all have
Uh,
our different roles that we can play.
Start there, and advocacy reminds me of an orchestra. I may not be able to play every instrument, but if I find the one instrument out of thousands of instruments, if I find the one that I'm good at, they need that instrument in order for advocacy to work. So I encourage everyone to find what you are good at. You know, Chris, Chris came up with it, and the structure that he came up with. One of the words that stood out to me was gifts. Find that gift, whatever that gift is. And one day, if you desire to take it farther and do things larger, then at least you'll have a foundation to start on and to build your own blueprint.
Awesome. I'm going to share a couple. You'll get these. Everyone will get these later. These are some resources if you wanted to find out how you can do your self-advocacy journey. I like the bottom one, and we don't want to go into too much detail, but that's one that everyone's talking a lot about is 5Calls, and it's an app that you put on your phone. Recently, there's been them trying to take away 504 protections or trying to take away access to Medicare and Medicaid. Using that 5Calls, if you can make calls, if you're comfortable with it and you're capable of it, use that 5Calls.org, that app, and it gives you a script. It gives you the phone numbers of the different representatives to call on every issue that's out there. I have to say though, Emmanuel, it's kind of bleak on the disabilities stuff. There's every so often there's a good one, but that's why we have to be self-advocates, right?
Uh, Absolutely, you bring up a good point, and you are absolutely right. But I also want to say every single issue from transportation down to water waste and water quality affects people with disabilities. So when you look at that list of topics that are on there, please remember that everything that is listed affects people with disabilities and their families in some form or another. But you're absolutely right. But every issue affects people with disabilities.
Exactly. We're the most intersectional. We're in every place. We're everywhere. And that's why we have to be visible. So it's now time for you, our attendees, to be visible or at least vocal, audible, however you want to express yourself, share your thoughts, your experiences around organized advocacy, in the spirit of nothing about us without us. We ask that you take the time to turn your cameras on if you're able. And it helps us communicate and connect with one another. It's not something you have to do as an attendee, but it is encouraging. It's nice to see our smiling faces and to see my cat when she comes and sits in front of my microphone. Hopefully you can hear me. hear me okay? But go ahead and raise your Zoom hand, your chat, or we can try to see you if you'd like to add in. Yocasta,
Hi.
hi.
So happy to be here. Uh, yes, precisely. Actually, I was looking into, because I have signed up for the advocacy cohort series with you, and because this is exactly what I'm trying to get to, just to take advocacy training here. And can you explain me a little bit of how that works? I haven't gotten any answers yet, and I kept getting the email to sign up for it. And I think I have done it twice. So I'd like to start there if you know.
Oh, I can only talk about my experience with it is when I joined, it was just a lot of fun, and a lot of it is developing stories, and a lot of things that we've talked about is finding those people to work with in your community to
Hmm.
get an accessible bus stop. So, but I don't know if anyone from staff wants to rate to talk to on your
Yeah,
cost.
this is Melissa, one of the staff at the NCCDD. I believe she was asking about partners in policymaking. Is that
Oh,
right?
okay.
No, I don't know. I'm trying to confirm.
I think it's the leadership.
The new,
think
okay,
the
Ability
Yes,
Leadership Program of North Carolina. So thank you
right.
very much for asking. Are you saying that you have not received the opportunity, the announcement that they're accepting applications at this time?
No, no, I did get that one, and I actually have submitted twice. I was just wondering about if this is the same thing that we're discussing, that one of similar to what Emmanuel was referring to when he.
No.
Okay, so but I'll be happy if you can just I would love to start with this one. I don't know if they're still going through the process of the application. I have
Yeah,
not gotten
so
any answers yet.
yeah, give me a second to really explain. So right now on the screen, you should be seeing an
Yes.
advertisement for the ALPNC, which is the Ability Leadership Program of North Carolina. They are accepting applications through the end of the month. And Emmanuel was actually speaking about a former North Carolina program. Partners in Policymaking is a program across the nation and in many of the territories that North Carolina does not currently have. But it has had it in the past. As a matter of
I
fact,
see.
Council on Development of Disabilities funded that for over 15 years before it started trying to develop the ALPNC. And so I believe something has been put in the chat. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say that North Carolina does not have partners in policymaking at this time, but North Carolina does have the ALP, and they have a new cohort that's starting again very soon. So we will make sure that we get this information to you in the post session email, resources email, so you have the opportunity to consider whether the ALP is appropriate or not for you. You have other people with their hands up. I see.
Melissa, this is Pam. May I interject something about that topic? The
Sure.
deadline to apply is the 21st, the deadline to apply for ALPNC. And so I'll leave it up to you whether we add that very long link to the application in today's chat, or if you
Thank
want
you.
to send it out in email.
Thank you. All right, Pamela, you want to call on your next hand up?
Jessica Bustamante.
Hey y'all. I actually am going through the ALP-NC facilitator training right now. So as is, I think Tim too. So yeah, it's a great program. And it's connected me with a bunch of people too. Like I end up getting a whole bunch of emails about advocacy issues because I went through that program. And I was going to answer one of the questions that like my biggest thing that I advocate for is more innovations waiver slots and DSP pay. And I was just like I don't know how many of y'all saw the email this morning about the governor's budget that only has 200 slots allocated for innovations waiver coming up, and that is just incredibly unacceptable considering he's like, you know, he's like he's the governor, so it's, you know, it's his version of the budget, but I would expect his to be more inclusive of more waiver spots than the state legislatures will be. And so I am just in shock over that.
When I think, me personally, I think that a lot of us look at our leaders, our elected officials as kind of, we put them like what Emmanuel was saying. You kind of like, I can't believe you talk to them like that. But they're our employees, right? We elect them. That's why our votes are so important, and that's why our voice is so important to be heard. Emmanuel, do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I, to your point, I think one of the other pieces is to reiterate that they wouldn't be in the seat if we didn't put them there. And I think there's no harm. There's no harm, and I know other people would disagree, but there is no harm in reminding them that you put them there. Uh, and and this is why it's even more important to show up and vote, because if you do that, then when you say we put you there, it is a reality check that, oh my God, they really did put me there. And I, for so many years, we have became afraid to hold leaders accountable. There's a word called accountability. So we got to start holding leaders accountable, and otherwise they will continue to do things without us, but to us, to keep their budgets together, keep their things moving. Well, this is a train that I'm not willing to get off of. So
Yeah,
you either figure out how to move the train forward with me included, or I'm gonna be like the caboose and the brake on the train, and I'm gonna stop the train until we figure out how to do it together.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time networking, and a lot of my networking, you know, in addition to like for a nonprofit trying to raise money, is just raising awareness. And in fact, I'll throw it in the chat, but I have a call to action button on our website that asks people to write to their representatives, and there's a link on how to find your representatives.
awesome. Awesome. I want to go on to Kay's thing. I'm going to go ahead, if that's okay, Kay, to read what you said. Number one is easy for me. My before and after story is attending North Carolina Youth Leadership Forum when I was 15. It was the first time I felt like I was in a room with others who understood what it was like to have a disability, and that I was part of something bigger and I could make a change. That is amazing, Kay. Go ahead and add to it, or the mic's yours.
The I and by
It was the first time that Kay was at an event run by people with disabilities.
And that
At that point,
uh, the my what my like
She didn't know what her future would look like.
I the how the how the how the um how my how say what my how right
And that program helped her to see what her future could look like.
that a same hat
And this is a shameless plug.
no the road the no you
And Kay now runs the youth leadership, North Carolina Youth Leadership Forum.
Yeah. Her the the oh yeah no
So if you're a person with a disability between the ages of 15 and 30, or the parent of a person with a disability, between the ages of 15 and 30, you can apply now at the Youth Lead NC website.
Awesome. Kay, that's a great plug. Then if you can make sure that we have that information and maybe Melissa can send it out, because that's great. That's where you got your start. This is where I get my start and my finish right now. Gotta move the program on or they won't ask me to come back again. The poll we have right now is super important because we want to make sure that we are meeting the needs. We want to learn a little bit more about what you think about the discussion series. And you're going to see that you see that short list of questions, multiple choice. Please answer each of the questions because it helps the council make sure that we serve you as intended and let us know how to improve our activities. So if you could go ahead and the first one is I'm a self-advocate, parent, family member, or neither. The second question is I live in a urban area or a big city or a rural area or a small town. The third one is I think the self-advocate discussion series is good, bad, or I don't know. And fourth question is I learned from the self-advocate series always, sometimes, or never. And fifth one, I use the Spanish interpretation feature. We need to know if that's being utilized. So when you're done, thank you for doing that poll because it helps us making sure that we meet everyone's needs. And we appreciate your input. That way we can improve these sessions, the discussion series.
Pamela, this is Pam. It looks like 20 of our 32 attendees have answered, have responded. So good job. Let's see if we can get more.
If you still have that poll, if you haven't finished it, please do so because it really does help us out a lot, inform us of what we need to do. So as you're filling out the form, as you're finishing the poll, and if you have, thank you. Here's a few resources and opportunities related to organizing advocacy. And don't forget, we're going to send this out later. You're going to get this in an email. We have the NACDD, the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities. The links is they've got self-advocacy resources online, uncomfortable conversation toolkits for advocates to address, and conversations in their state to become advocacy leaders. Alliance for Justice, Advocacy 101, really good stuff. Disability Scoop. Oh man, I love Disability Scoop. It's like a newsletter that comes out. And Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, which is right now. We've got the ARC of the US, Autism Self-Advocacy Network, 5 calls we talked about. Self-Advocates Becoming Empowered, SABE. They're amazing. They've got some really good videos on voting too. I've used their videos. Self-Advocacy Resource and Technology Assistance as well, SARTAC. So wanted to let you know that your story is important. Sharing your story in an impactful way to educate and inform key decision makers, lawmakers, and others who can help make life better for people with IDD in North Carolina. NCCDD's My Story Matters campaign provides the way for you to share your story by completing an easy-to-use online form. You can share your own story in your own words. That's what matters, okay? So please go to the web addresses shown here and see some of the stories, learn more. So upcoming topics for self-advocate discussion series. I want to thank Chris for the opportunity and the staff council for letting me do this, but coming up, Chris will be back. And on April 16th, we will be doing the transportation, talked a little bit about transportation today. May 21st, adulting with IDD. June 17th, art, direct benefits and advocacy tool. And again, I don't know if I'm wrapping this up too quickly here, but I wanted to make sure that I got everything that I needed to get in. And I want to say another thanks to the council and for Chris for this opportunity to step up and be part of this today. I love being part of this community. So thank you so much. And
Pamela, let us extend our appreciation to you as well. Thank you for accepting this invitation and doing such an extraordinary job. I also want to say thank you to Emmanuel Jenkins for being the guest speaker for today. The two of you were very wonderful together. And I also want to extend a thank you to all of our attendees for making this such a high trafficked session for the Self-Advocate discussion series. But again, I want to turn this back to Pamela McPhee and say thank you very much. And please expect to see her again in our very, very near future. So unless there's anything Pam or Pamela or Emmanuel want to share before they say goodbye,
just
we're
a
all
thank
done
you
for
again to
today.
Emmanuel. Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining, and it's always good to be back with friends. Oftentimes we work together, but you can't call everybody a friend, so it is good to be back with friends fighting for the same cause. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for opening your virtual doors once again, and I will one day be live and in person. So thank you all.
Thank
you.
you. All right, we'll see everybody next time. Pamela McAfee, would you like to hang out for a minute after you take a quick break? I'm sure you need to take a quick break and maybe get something to drink. And we usually have a debrief. So let's let you break from us for a few minutes while the room empties. And we are going to save the recording. Excellent.